He doesn't realize that when you're flushing Port Edward, it does go to Hartford.
I'd like to call. I'd like to call the October 25th, 2022 Ag Planning and Tourism meeting to order. First order of business, set the minutes from the September 20th. So moved by Jay, second by Dave. Any conversation, dialogue?
No.
Jay, are you on this committee?
Chairman, go ahead.
All right, moving on to the parcels requesting inclusion in certificate ag districts. We had a recap here, or 1, 2.
September 22nd, we had a ag and farming position.
So just looking at how many.
There were 1, 2, 3, three inclusions and 1 exclusion. 3 inclusions included Lakeside Farm Properties, where if you remember a year ago, we did another parcel that they had in Putnam. That's a big parcel. That's 200 and some odd acres. Yes, the picture, there's the Putnam one. The second one is Dempsey, Richard Dempsey down in White Creek. And he has a parcel adjoining his property that he wants to combine 2 parcels. So his is the red one there. And the last one is McMore in the town of Whitehall. They have a small parcel, which is 0.20 acres that they want to include in property that is currently being farmed. They are not the farmer, but they lease the rest of the land. And when you're looking at that, you'll notice the house does not look like it sits on that parcel. We're not worried about that one today.
And we have 1 exclusion, right?
And we have 1 exclusion, and that would be that's in Hebron. And usually when we do the full consolidated ag 8 district, we review them at the same time. But since we did that. That's Iman. And that's a 1.7 acre parcel that, as you can tell by the aerial photography, is not used for ag purposes. So they want to take that out of ag. And those were all approved by the Ag and Farming Protection Board.
Is there any tax advantage
Being
in an ag versus not being in an ag?
number of years.
No, yep.
It's either 7 years or 5 years. So your back pay of taxes is whether you're in the ag district or not.
Not the ag.
So if you're in year 5, it's over. If you're in year 7, there's 2 years left.
Right.
So like if it's switched at the end of year 5, it starts over again. So it's your payback when it comes out of ag use, whether you're in the
Right,
district or
but
not.
no, different tax
The one
liability.
that's being removed.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not using that for ag purposes. They have no ag exemption. There's no chargeback being
The
incurred
lease
on that.
requirement shorter.
Right.
In the ag district,
Yep.
3 years versus 7, is that?
5.
5.
5 versus 7.
5 versus 7.
Everything's 5 and 7. So like the buyback's different. Everything's different.
So there's no different tax liability versus being, no. It's the use of the property, and the exclusion is not being used. for
And
ag.
protections you get when you're farming it.
Right.
Because if it's in an ag district and you have a problem with the neighbor, the ag and market.
Yeah, I knew about that part.
And that's the reason why Putnam is inquiring on those 2
How
big
about
parcels.
zoning?
Neither they
Does that
are.
impact zoning? If you're in an ag district, does zoning apply to you? If you're in an ag district?
Does your town have zoning? That makes a difference too.
Well, but assuming they have zoning,
Yeah.
I mean,
It could, depends on what your zoning
so is that an
regulations are.
advantage of protection?
Well, you would
The
zone
farmer.
agriculture and you would not zone agriculture if you didn't want ag there. That's how you would decide.
Well, I didn't know that automatically zoned agriculture if you're in an ag district.
I know
You can't completely
state would over.
Yeah, if you were you'd all have to get together and have a powwow. on figuring that out.
So we need a motion.
I'll move it.
So moved by Jay, second by Supervisor
No.
Is that your congratulations?
Second by Supervisor Hicks.
I don't feel so bad, James, except you don't have name tag in front of you.
No, he knew who I was, he didn't call me something else.
Any other dialogue? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Before Laura gets started, there was something else that came out of the ag meeting. There was a request to have a countywide ag right to farm. And there are some benefits to this. Jay, you had motioned it, but you also spoke about some of the benefits.
Well, when they're going for ag land protection and other things, if the whole county has a rate to farm lots, scores more points in those things and in other grants and stuff that are ag related. If the whole county has it, many of the towns have it, but not all of the towns have it.
And I think you're right, Laura. I think White Creek doesn't. have it.
So that's why it's a White Creek. Anyone know how many you have it?
What about-
When it's
I'm not sure.
right to farm with the county is the same, there's regulations that control you when you do one in the town, you've got to have a grievance board and all kinds of stuff. You know, with a certain makeup of it, it's gotta be a farmer, a supervisor, a something else on this board to handle the disputes if they come up about fences or whatever else. Is it the same with the county? We got to set up another, grievance board, or is that? It's probably
That's a lawyer.
I was gonna-
That's why the lawyer's trying to look at it.
Six towns have their own law, they're all a little different. I think the county.
And I don't know if this
supersede
is a lawyer question, but does that supersede then the town? And the town no longer has a say in the matter and it's all done at the county level?
Well, you can always be more restrictive on the town level than you can at the county.
It's usually, I think, the other way around. It's usually you can give more rights at town level than you can at the county.
Well, I guess I'm thinking in the criminal liability. And, you can make things, more restrictive the farther down the ladder you go.
Yeah, and I think that was a question we had in regards to this question as well during the meeting, was, the effect is that it's going to help the entire county, but if you have townships that don't want to have a right to farm, now you're forcing them, from a county perspective to encompass that policy.
It's Hartford have a right to farm.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
I see the sign every day.
They do.
I wouldn't go all the way. Home rule,
Right.
if we've already got a law in place and you're gonna come in, why that would.
Maybe White Creek's the only town that doesn't have it, so maybe once you come.
Has that been discussed in White Creek and?
Hadn't been discussed during the time that I've been there, but we have a couple farmers there on the board, so we can certainly, get that addressed at the town level. But what's the temperature here at the county level? Do we want to look at it further, or?
Well, I think the questions about Dan, we kind of just need answers to before we look any further. So,
I would say one advantage is when the Amish live in your town, everyone's complaining about the stuff on the road, you can say it's great farm. Are they farming? Certainly they are.
no,
Just ask them.
All right, so we'll leave it there for further.
Yeah, get answers.
Yeah, just one comment on that. We looked at that when we did it was 2017 countywide farmland protection plan. As I recall, don't quote me on this, but I think there were 11 out of the 17 towns that had right to farm laws. So we can look it up in the ag plan, but we'd have to do a community survey to see if anybody has adopted a right to farm law since we did identify them at one point.
And I do think one thing there was looking at it countywide. That's why it was brought up for discussion and brought to this county.
since I'm sitting in the Hartford chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Are we allowed to grow marijuana in a town that doesn't have the right to farm?
You're legally allowed to grow 3 plants per adult.
Commercial use.
Yeah. So
No,
like,
can we have a commercial operation?
no, you cannot. You need a permit.
Right, but can you get a permit if it's not in the right to farm area?
That's up,
You can
that's,
still farm. even though you
Yes,
don't
you
have
can
the
still
right
farm.
I just want to make sure.
Are you talking
But
about?
if you don't have a right to farm, your neighbors will complain and then through the town will have to.
Yeah, but he'd be the one stealing it anyway, so one. He'd never.
does Turkey Farm sit in Jackson or just sit in Cambridge?
It's right down the line. It's down the line.
Yeah, you're gonna have an issue there, or Cassie. maybe.
Well, the guy that throws that used to work for me
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Right.
But we also have, we've got Carlton with the hemp.
Yeah.
Right by that. It's just, yeah,
It won't
it's got
be,
sting to it. All right.
it won't be hemp for much longer once they get their permit.
Right.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, how is everybody doing?
Do we have a definition for farming? Well, I mean, when the right to farm law was written, the biggest farm was probably 50, 75 cows. When
No,
the first one comes through.
no, what do you go? Bigger than that.
Yeah, but they're way bigger than that. When the right to farm was written, the laws,
Right, that was probably the 40s, maybe.
yeah, and so now, what is it, what do you call a farm
Laura,
that's milking 3,000 cows?
There's two different definitions. There's USDA and then there's what the
This is
state
for
of New
property
York.
tax law.
Right.
The
Property
USA
tax laws,
Yeah,
more than 7 acres, more than 10,000. Primarily it's 10 acres and $10,000
Gross.
worth of, worth of income, unless it's a horse boarding operation. It can be down to 7 acres, but it has to be gross income more than 50,000.
Well, I'm thinking of
It's an
Purdue
agricultural
down in
exemption.
Virginia, that's got this factory, the chickens come in one end and the feathers fly all over when you drive by, you see them in the lawn, white feathers. And then you got the meat coming out the other end, is that a farmer? Or is that a factory?
processing.
That's processing. yeah.
Well, I don't know, what is it?
But I guess.
If you're not feeding them, they got.
I get
The reason
you.
I'm asking,
Feeding the
Going
cage.
in as baby chicks and coming out as chickens at the other end.
That's farming. Does the right to farm law, it probably does have a definition, isn't the right to farm law?
It has, the definition is land use and agricultural production.
There you go.
Not less than 7 acres used as a single operation in the preceding 2 years for production and sale of crops, livestock. Average gross value of $10,000 or more, or not less than 7 acres used in the preceding 2 years to support a commercial horse boarding operation or commercial equine operation with annual gross receipts of 10,000 or more.
They need to update that.
And
Jay, what grants, talking about county grants, they'd be more eligible for if they had a county right to farm law?
Well, the
PDRs.
PDR mostly is the key one, but there are some things that come up, I think that, you know, could be state ones that. they would
Why
look
would
at.
the towns apply to that then instead of the county? If they've already got a right to farm.
Well, if it was on a single farm, a lot of farms cover more than one town.
Get back to that in a minute.
that part.
That's fine.
We up there for the septic funding award?
Mhm.
I go ahead.
So, as you may recall, last year, New York State DEC awarded the county, it was 250,000. Intended to replace failing septic systems within 250 feet of the shoreline of Lake George or Cosayonis. So DEC had very specific guidelines as to what was and was not eligible. So the program thus far has largely been managed by Corinna over at Soil and Water. Meanwhile, recently, the state offered us an additional $490,000, bringing the total available to $740,000. And the basic rules on the septic replacement program are the program will fund a maximum of $10,000 up to 50% of the cost of replacing the septic system. The bottom line intention of the program is to protect water quality. There were no income constraints or other constraints. Bottom line, if you have a failing system, then DEC is offering to help replace it. New construction is not an eligible cost. So basically, Soil and Water is has been too understaffed to effectively be able to manage the program. So they requested some help. And through the county administrator, the treasurer, and our codes office, we got together and tried to find a way to make it a little bit simpler to create interface between potential applicants and the paperwork that has to be filled out, questions that get asked, et cetera. So there has been a web page created on the county administrator's website that has full information about the program, the applications. There's maps of properties that are eligible by parcel IDs and owner name, as well as a page on frequently answered questions. So the intent is we do believe that in the first round, there was some misunderstanding in terms of who was eligible, who was not, how it worked. The treasurer's office sent out a letter to all eligible recipients, but again, the letter contained language that was a template from DEC. And we think that we can probably do a better job at clarifying some of that information and putting a second letter out and getting more people to potentially participate. So that is the plan, but I believe that we actually have to accept the $490,000 into the budget. I know the board has already accepted the grant, but I think we have to put it in the budget. Right? Whose budget are we putting it in?
Carry over. I don't know.
I think my opinion is we might as well wait because there's still over $200,000 of the first.
We didn't even use 20. Yeah, we didn't even use 20.
I'm just saying that there's no urgency to the new money that we can make it part of the 23. Because we won't lose through the 200. I mean, there's no harm in adding it now. Because if you roll it
Just have
over,
to do it again, so.
so you can let what we have roll if we want, or we can recognize the award and bump it up to the 400 and move on.
This is gonna last forever.
Till 2026.
Right, so, no, so can we, no, but is there a place in a reserve where we could just put it there and it's there until the program ends? There's no such animal for that.
But
Yeah.
honestly, I'm sorry, Chair.
Is there a time frame on all this?
The contract completes in 2026, so we have to have expenditures.
And whatever isn't used goes back?
Correct.
No,
No,
We don't get it.
It's reimbursed.
we,
Well,
they don't
true.
front us any,
Right.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
you what?
they don't front us any money,
Right.
so we won't return any.
Oh, I thought you said that we recognized the grant and now we're gonna,
You
where do we
recognize
put it? If we don't have it, we're not putting it anywhere, right?
Well, we put the revenue and expense in the budget, but they don't give us any money till I ask them.
And then do they send the money
That's the way
to you
most
or
of it
direct
works.
to you?
The only one that doesn't work that way is
But
the public
then don't
defender.
be rely on it, don't
For this grant.
You just put in your expense and it all, so it has no value.
Your revenue to expense is equal.
You're right.
Put 490 in your revenues and 490.
It's net cost zero.
So, and you really don't have it.
Right.
Right.
Bob, does your residents know
Like-
about that? Are they aware
Yeah,
that?
but there's such a, and Laura can probably verify this in spades, that there's a huge, disinformation about it.
Yeah.
People want to build those things, they want to tear out their, they want to use it to prospect and see if they've got a septic system. They just want $10,000. And so no one's gonna come in and, damn few I've heard come and say, yes, my system's failing, I want to build another one. I mean, maybe we could do some more publicity on it, I'm not sure, we thought we did a pretty good job to start with.
Melissa and I were just talking beforehand, so she's working with IT on, because it's kind of lost on our webpage, so she's creating more
Well, it's
pages.
done.
It's done,
It's
okay.
it's done and published. It's on the county administrator's website. There was a very brief bit of information on the treasurer's website. That has been unpublished. I don't know if we told you that. but
No.
You're unpublished.
You're off.
Apparently I have no control over my page.
You thought you did?
It's like at home.
You look at the paper.
And there's gonna be a banner on the Washington County website that says, for this information, find it here.
Yeah.
So go to county, because I think it was very difficult for people to find the information. Obviously, if we've only given out $7,500 of the first 250 that we got, we've got to start getting this money out to people that need it.
Go ahead.
Are you saying the Washington County homepage? That was the administrators.
No,
No, she's saying to putting a banner on the home
On the
page and it will link to the administrative page.
Can we see you go across?
no animated figures, no.
As much as I hate to offer up somebody else, I've done it anyway. There might be a benefit, I think, to some kind of town hall meeting and a local place where it affects. If some of us could go and attend a meeting over in Argyle Town Hall for a couple hours and
You know that.
I just don't know if there's any value maybe to a public outreach, just because I think that there is some misunderstanding on a lot of the pieces of the program. And some people were under the impression it was just too darn hard, that
Right,
don't
to
why
get it,
bother.
yeah.
And it's actually, once you know how it flows, it's actually not too bad.
And there are some restrictions, but there's also a lot of
No
qualifications
pun intended.
that people, they
Just-
do
just
qualify,
like-
probably don't know it.
It's just our guy in Greenwich.
Well,
Yeah.
Cassia,
Fort Ann
No,
and
take it-
Argyle.
40.
Our guy in Greenwich.
So
so
they-
on
So
Casayuna.
you got Putnam and Dresden.
Lake George, Lake George, you'd have Dresden.
Yes, and there, we now, so on the county administrator on the webpage,
We know the.
there are actual
Well, it just means
maps
you're
of
going to play.
all of the
town meeting.
parcels with the owner's name and the parcel.
We could do
ID.
one at the Cassian Lake Association and do one up in Putnam somewhere.
Pick a
Pick one up there.
central, yeah.
Probably not as an association.
Was that the biggest crowd we ever had at the pavilion?
I've already started reaching out to a member of the Casino Lake Association. I'm, good friends with one of the board members. So he's excited about it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have this meeting further discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, give him the details.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the things that happened last time is the association didn't have really enough information about the program and just sent out blank letters to residents saying, call them if you want money, which unfortunately led to a lot of disappointed people.
There was a lot of misunderstanding about some of the deadlines too, that people felt they couldn't meet the deadlines, but they were not what they were perceived to be. They were like, almost like a notice of intent deadline, not you gotta be completed by.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of information that could help the residents.
It'd be very valuable.
Yeah.
Well, there was also some issues with people getting the money after they've done their project. So that would spread throughout the community as well. Yeah, you can put your money in and do it. Been approved for it, but it's gonna take you months, years to get your money back. So I think you got.
Yeah, the way the program is currently designed, the homeowner essentially has to go through the paperwork, the permitting process, pay for the work, and then get reimbursed. As I understand it, there is potentially a way, and this would apply to low-income individuals, to do direct payments to the contractor, but that substantially increases the difficulty in managing the program. So for the way that it has been set up, it's set up to be a reimbursement program.
But if you have a failing system or when you think it's about to fail, you gotta replace it anyway.
Right.
So why not do it when you have a chance to get something back?
Well, and that's the incentivization.
Savings
of
dogs
this,
lie.
yeah.
That's $3 line. That's a pervasive.
If it's a case where the bill's coming, you might as well get
You
it.
can almost reach out to the contractor, say, hey, there's free money out there.
Did
It's
you
in your
know-
best interest to go visit these people on these parcels and say, I can do this for you. Maybe your best salesman.
You want to have Patrick call.
Yeah.
Just. Kind of should have said this, Jeremy.
All right, next on the list is the solid waste management plan. First of all, in the meeting agenda, a link to a current copy of the draft plan was sent to everybody. I know you all read all
300.
300 pages.
Laura, you're wrong.
Okay. So to remind everybody, you all read this plan actually a couple of years ago when we first started drafting it. We, based on DEC regulations that require the countywide adoption of a solid waste management plan, we elected to draft the plan in-house, which saved us substantial funding on hiring a consultants to draft the plan for us. So Pamela has worked long and hard on this plan. It went to committee. The committee approved it. And the process is the committee approves it, then it goes to DEC for approval, and then it goes out to public comment. Well, when we sent the plan to DEC, COVID hit somewhere around that time. They then got back to us and instead of approving it for publication, asked us to make some additional changes. So keep in mind that the general concept of the solid waste management plan is that what DEC is looking for is for a county to gather all the metrics on how much waste is collected, how it's disposed of, what kind of waste it is, and then craft a plan to reduce the waste stream, either increase recycling or develop other programs that actually ultimately reduce the waste stream. As you all know, that's a little bit tough for us because we don't own the process that collects the waste. So we were stymied from the get-go in terms of even being able to collect accurate data in terms of what is out there, because again, we don't own that data. But DEC basically came back and said, we need you to go get more data, which caused a lot of back and forth. That's sort of like, again, how we've requested data from all the contracted service organizations, and we've got what they've given us. DEC then shared some data that they do collect with us. And so there was a bit back and forth, and I think DEC is now convinced that we've done what we can with what data they can give us and what data we were able to collect, added to the data that the county kept during the years that we actually owned responsibility for the process. So that section of the plan, some of the data has been updated a little bit subsequent to DEC comments. The second part of the plan that changed was there is an alternatives assessment section. Again, going back to trying to figure out ways to reduce the waste stream. They provide you a list of 15 different alternatives, different programs, different ways to reduce waste. So we did the best we could in terms of there are some things that we can do. So for example, informational, we can put something on the website that encourages recycling or points residents to where there might be resources to get information or where to go recycle things. But again, without owning the companies in the process, it is really hard to say, this is where we are, this is how much we want to reduce, and this is where we intend to be in 10 years, because we can't even get exactly where we are correct. I mean, I think we're within the ballpark, but the data is not exact. So that section was added to the plan. And then the third section that was added, again, it's an implementation schedule. We're going to implement what we can, which again is more related to information, encouraging disbursement of knowledge, like, we can recycle these things, web pages, we can get communities involved, but we cannot dictate to the contractors any changes in their business model. So if the committee wishes to approve those changes, we will send the draft plan back to DEC, and they will either then approve it to put out for, I think it's a 45-day public comment period. If it goes through the public comment period, it comes back to the board for adoption. And then we reevaluate again in 2 years and then completely rewrite the plan again in 10 years. Alternatively, we're going to send it to DEC and they're going to request some more changes, and we're going to do this again.
So motion to approve the changes. But Ryan.
Yeah, you can't do anything positive with that, Chair.
I'll second it.
Motion
No discussion.
by Supervisor Higgs, second by Supervisor.
I would suggest a one pager with a list of people that do recyclables and hauling of trash, and just say, here's the people where that information's available. You have them all licensed with New York State somewhere. You get the information. Just one page would cover all of them that are in the county.
What if they don't want to give the information?
We don't care. We can't get it from them either. But they have to, if they're licensing them, they can get it.
So there's a lot of data.
We shouldn't need that many pages though for them to get the information that we can't do anything about. It's something that doesn't make sense.
That's logic. She's dealing with the state. We gotta make sure.
Question, Laura, in that, what you've got right there now, if we approve it, is there any cost to the county? Are we committing any funding?
Well, the only thing that we might do is, again, if we can facilitate public information sessions, if we can publish things on web pages or give things to communities, we can help with information. But no, there is no direct cost to implement programs.
That you've suggested?
Correct.
Okay.
The direct cost is what we're paying somebody to keep doing this year after year after year.
Right.
That's ridiculous,
Unfunded mandate right now.
totally,
Yeah.
with no good answer coming out of it.
They're really worthless one too.
Yeah, they're not gonna get any information.
Well, we will do what we can to post information publicly, but again, we cannot force the providers to give us information and data. DEC can require whatever DEC is going to require, and subsequent to them sending the draft back to us, they did give us some information. But it's still not all the information that they would like to see in the plan. But we can't, there's nothing we can do about that.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Any further dialogue? Motion is to accept the, or approve the revisions to the draft. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Brian, this is your chance.
No.
All right, carries. Thanks.
I'm wondering if you put in there that we consider buying the transfer stations back, we could get it eligible for a grant.
That's not coming out of this committee. I mean, unless Jay wants to bring it up, because ours falls into Jackson, so I don't think so. Moving on tourism.
Okay, tourism. The next event that we have planned is a short-term rental event. The intent there is to help connect people who are offering short-term rentals for overnight stays with products and services and things to do in the county. So the event is going to be held at Salem Artworks on November 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. And what we're doing is we're putting together a small binder, a tourism binder, notebook, binder, that's the right word, sorry. Like a 3-page notebook. And so essentially the owner of the short-term rental can insert pages that says, okay, there's some art galleries over here, or if you have a flat tire and you need your car fixed, just resources that are available to people staying in the area, what museums there are, events that might be held in the area, to hopefully more directly connect people who are staying in the area from out of town who want to better understand what there is to see and do. So again, that will be on November 17th.
6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm sure it's gonna go.
And the main featured speaker at the event is sitting to my left.
So,
For hours.
Laura, what's that?
Yeah, you change it for all.
For hours.
It could, if you let me, anyway.
What time is it?
6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah. We're not setting up this. That's Black Dog setting up all that stuff. But yeah.
Is there gonna be any food in it?
I don't know. I don't know what we've organized
That's
yet.
draw.
Well,
I'm not.
So,
we're still putting together the invites.
yes, so as soon as we get the invites, we'll get it around to supervisors. But I mean, along with what Laura's talking about in regards to promoting the events and stuff that's happening in the county, my goal in this is to hopefully connect short-term rental operators with, individuals like, for example, Dakota Farms had a yoga retreat 2 weekends ago, and that brought in, they had like 50 people that attended that. there was people that came in from 3-4 hours away to attend to this event the entire weekend. I had, I know my Airbnb and a couple other Airbnbs had it, but they didn't get the information from Lakota Farms on Airbnbs that are local to the property. Those people who were coming had to figure out where to stay. So if we can, help, groups that are having events to connect them with the short-term rental operators, keeps the money inside the county as opposed to them going to across the border to Saratoga County or Warren County, staying in the hotels there. We can get them to stay in Washington County, especially on the off months when it's like, it's not seasonal. We get to like this time of year and then early spring, unless there's an event going on, people aren't, not really attracting people.
And they do the weddings just like some of the others in the county. Guests are always looking for places to stay.
So these are the ones that are on an Airbnb list.
So I actually am on the Airbnb host for all Capital Region, Albany. And I posted on there specifically for Washington County. I said, this is just for Washington County Airbnb operators. And then we have Airbnb operators who are already listed on our lodging page for Washington County. And then,
No VRB.
no, and we're gonna talk about that during this night too. I mean, that's gonna be emphasized that we don't have an agreement with the RBO and they're refusing to,
Right, we don't want to help patronize establishments that aren't paying their occupancy.
Right. Right, and exactly. So if you're bringing in more op tax dollars, it's going to be able to, say, that helps us to be able to promote more businesses. So that's the carrot and the stick.
We're in Salem.
I saw
Salem
it.
Artworks.
I saw it. These guys say saw it.
So.
Brian doesn't know what the acronym stands for.
Chairman, could I ask you a favor while you're entertaining those folks?
Yes.
There's still a lot of confusion over whether or not they are subject to our hot tax.
Right.
I'm still getting a large, what I think is a large number of calls because they're, you might have an Airbnb operator who sometimes rents direct and
Right.
sometimes rents
So
through
they're-
Airbnb,
yeah.
and there's confusion on
Whether they have to
remitting
pay.
to me
Right.
and not remitting to me. So if you have time, while you have some of their
We can make you a featured speaker.
undivided attention, I would. And I will
Voluntarily.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly, because I think a portion of our initial part of the meeting is to discuss, what we've done in the last 2 years with initiating the agreement with Airbnb, speak to VRBO, and then we can bring you right up to speed.
Uncharacteristically, they normally feel better after talking.
Yeah.
Ours Taylor brought some product, ours Taylor brought product down to the artwork, because I bet you have a bigger turnout.
Yeah.
You should talk to those guys at ours.
Yeah, any additional outreach that any of you can do to encourage people to attend, it's Airbnb does not make it particularly easy to do direct outreach. So if you know of short-term rental owners or businesses who want to connect with short-term rental owners,
You're gonna see how big of this
please
transitioning.
invite
how
them.
they get rid of them. At ours Taylor.
Not enough room at RS Taylor, not enough room.
well, we did an event at RS Taylor right before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was the last event.
It was the last year. So to sort of carry on with that short-term rental, I just wanted to give you a very brief picture of kind of how the short-term rental general picture has changed. In 2020, the average number of rentals on a daily basis was 101. In 2021, that number went to 163. Right now in 2022, it's 194. Now, I think because that doesn't include the last quarter, I think by the end of the year, you're going to see that this year is probably going to be pretty commensurate with last year, which is, probably 160, 170
Right.
units available on a daily basis.
Because the peak during season, it's probably around 260, 265.
Right. Yeah, but so those will be your averages.
And that also includes like when you're getting those from, Road. So on Airbnb, some of the sites that are on there might be like campsites. So, it still shows up as a listing, even though it might be like a campsite listing as opposed to an actual house. So I think there's, I think there's some grayness in the, okay, sorry.
Wow.
So if you look at the actual platforms that these units are offered for rental, what they really report primarily on is Airbnb versus Vrbo, because those are the two major ones. But there are also, you can look at, some of the other host platforms as well. There has been a slight shift in terms of the number of units that are offered on Airbnb versus Vrbo. I can't do an actual, I don't know if you saw this, but Rove changed the way they did data comparison. So it looks like it sort of went from a 60 to 70% Airbnb to 20-30% Vrbo. That shift has changed a little bit. The number of Vrbo listings is reducing and the number of Airbnb listings is increasing, which is good for us because we're collecting tax from Airbnb.
Is there a reason for that?
I feel like as an operator, the reason is just the platform is easier to use with Airbnb. You do get more support service from Vrbo, but in the last year, I feel like Airbnb has increased and hired more support staff. So I think Airbnb is actually in an outward approaching, trying to reach out to the hosts and work with them so that they can build the business, where Vrbo is very much still sitting back and, Vrbo's been around for nearly 40 years. It's just been under a variety of different names, whether vacation rental by homeowner. But that's, they've always been a process where they have services included but their services are not as technologically advanced as Airbnb. When I go to log on to my Airbnb app, I get on like that. When I go to get the Vrbo owner app, it takes forever. It's very lethargic. So I think Airbnb has put a lot of emphasis and money into. I think the other thing is to promotion. I think when you look at the commercials that are out there, Airbnb is Vrbo had a lot of commercials back in 2020 and 2021. I think Airbnb has increased their exposure and promotion. So I think easiness and then just word of mouth.
I think there's one other factor as well. Airbnb is, generally speaking, I think, doing a better job at working with communities as well as hosts. So for example, Airbnb is starting to put some regulations in place that clamp down on party houses and other types of rentals that are creating community problems, whereas Vrbo is not doing it much. So just to give you an idea of what this means, overall, between all of the platforms, there were probably about $7 million in short-term rentals. So that was like the total annual revenue for the last couple of years. Out of that, Fort Anne, Granville, and Salem have consistently remained in the top 3 for revenue generating. If you look at the average daily rate within the county, overall county-wide, it's about $300 a night. However, the average daily rate in Fort Anne, which is literally double what any other community is about $730. The next highest is Putnam at $500 a night and Dresden at $430 a night.
Obviously, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, we have in 40, we have 75 plus short-term rentals.
Obviously, if you look at those townships, they fall right on Lake George. So that's the key economic driver.
But most of ours are on Hemlock Pond.
Hemlock Pond, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the high.
Yeah, eight of them up there on the link. The pond rather, so.
So if you take those higher revenue generating communities out, which again would be Fort Anne, Putnam, and Dresden, then the average countywide rental for an overnight stay short term is about $240 a night. But factoring in those higher ones, it's closer to $300 a night. So people are paying significant money to come here. $300 a night is not inexpensive.
That's the question that's been asked to me. People know that I operate. They're like, do you really get, and I'll just put a number out there, off season, $1,000 for 2 nights. Yep. For a place that's a 4-bedroom that sleeps 12 people. Yep. I get $1,000 for 2 nights. People are amazed that people will come up here and pay that amount of money. $200 of that is cleaning, $400 the overnight accommodation. That's off season. That's like this time of year right now. During the summer months, we do a 4-night minimum, and just if we're doing a 2-night minimum now, 4-night minimum in the summer, you can double that revenue. So it's as simple as that. But people are paying that. In comparison to other parts of the state, I also have a couple properties in Delhi, and we are consistently getting the demand rate on this part of the area is much higher than being in the southern tier region.
So I guess I just wanted to mention those things because if you think about the tourism conversation over the past few years, which started from, we don't have this thing called tourism. Well, we do. I mean, we clearly do.
She's
And
going to hit you because you're in Dana's chair.
I would also like to take that a step further. We've also at this committee and at the board level talked about the demographic shift problem that we have, which is because we're losing population, because we have an aging population, we're losing workforce, our schools are shrinking in size, et cetera. Well, the way to combat that is to encourage people who have left to come back or encourage people to move to the area. Well, tourism is the gateway to that. So the more we can showcase why the county is an attractive place to be, the better our economy is going to be in the long run. That's it. I'm done. Shut me up now.
So will there be a big party at the Earthworks that night? Because I tried to put it in my phone. Don't ask me how this happened. You came out that it's Dale Bryant's birthday. And I don't know how they got my phone. Is it like is there a big number that we need to be aware of? Because I don't know how many candles.
He's chairman of IT, so the whole county's gonna get that. And they're going,
I was like, it's on my phone. I'm like, what the hell?
It's included in the profile. It's in the contact,
I've been hacked, yeah.
You figured Google was only.
By Dave. By Dave.
Any other questions for Laura in regards to tourism?
No,
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to be staying here for this meeting because our Delaware engineer, let's go move up in the county, wanted me to tell the county how lucky we are. We have a lure and that we have an active regional plan. Says she's never seen it before and she's been around for a long, long, long time. And she was so impressed with the county to take the initiative to. So I stayed, now I gotta go. So thank you publicly, but a great job.
I go to Salem and they stick me on the stage and I
Come to Cleveland and give you a beer.
I didn't get one. Thank you, Sue.
But it's really impressive because of the two women that run.
Sarah Parker for this event? Yeah, she's on our list. Yeah, she's already listed on the Washington County tourism page. Yeah, most of Black Dog has been putting together an invite list. Many of these are already on our lodging page and they're on our, like SAW and, Lavalier Farms, Lakota. A lot of them are, that was the discussion, was the wedding venues or venues that bring in people, might get those venues connected with the short-term rental operators.
And one of the things that ran across my mind is I'm going to say Hebron. So Lucy Joe's Coffee in Hebron. Why don't we have little single serve packs with Washington County Tourism branding on it for short-term rentals so that you could buy for a minimum price some honey, some coffee, some maple syrup, something that's a local product. And I'd like to encourage more and more ways for short-term rentals to, we can't afford to give it all away, but inexpensively access products that showcase the county.
That's a good part to add to the November 17th. Sarah actually does that in Salem already. So Sarah Parker does that. She has a food list order that she sends to the guests before they arrive. Like, if you want this, mark it off, has the cost there, and she charges them, and then she leaves it for them. So they have freshly prepared eggs, and fresh eggs. Fresh produce and stuff stuff locally.
Instacart Washington County.
What's up?
Instacart Washington.
Pretty much.
Good idea. We got some I Love Washcoat mugs that are being made.
All right.
Anything else coming forward the board today? Entertain motion to adjourn. Give it to Brian. Yeah. Second by Dave.
Hartford.
Thanks, guys. Everybody.